Okay, welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning and Zoning Committee for Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. It is currently 1:06 p.m. We're getting a little bit of a late start. Sorry about that. I am the chair of this committee, Andrew Owen. I'm joined by Vice Chair Scott Reed. Councilman, committee member Kevin Bratcher has joined us. Councilwoman Rui has joined us. Councilman Batchan and Hudson have joined us. Those are all committee members. And then we've also been joined by Councilman Syme, who has an item on the agenda, and Councilwoman Hawkins, who wants to speak to an item on the agenda as well. Oh, we have also been joined by Councilwoman Chapel virtually. She has an item on the agenda. And since that's the case, we need to say that this meeting is being held pursuant to KRS 61.826 and Council Rule 5A. Okay, so we are holding a couple of things at the requests of a couple of our colleagues. We're holding number 4, O-188-25. And we are holding number 5, O-187-25. It is my understanding that this will be the last time that both of those items will be held. They will be heard at the next meeting. We were going to hold item number 7 again. We are actually going to call it and speak to it a little bit, and then very likely table it after we've had that conversation. But that is up to the committee, of course. All right, first item on the agenda is item number 1, O-206-25, an ordinance relating to the zoning of property located at 570 Eastern Parkway containing approximately 0.1649 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 24, zone 0045. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Properly moved and seconded. Julia
Williams, Office of Planning. This is 24 Zone 0045, the Cottage Inn and Parkway Diner. This is located at 570 Eastern Parkway in Council District 15. The existing use is commercial with a proposed use of commercial. The existing zoning is R7 in the Traditional Neighborhood Form District with a proposal for C1 in the Traditional Neighborhood Form District. The change in zoning is from R7 multifamily to C1 commercial. There were waivers and variances requested, as well as a detailed district development plan with binding elements. There's one parcel to be developed with a commercial structure, which is currently a restaurant and proposed to continue as a restaurant. The requested rezoning is to permit that continuing use of the restaurant with an outdoor patio and outdoor seasonal alcohol sales. There's no parking requirement due to the age of the structure. This is the applicant's development plan showing the existing structure and then some off-site parking spaces and some adjacent parking spaces along the right-of-way. This is the subject property from Eastern Parkway. This is the view from Bradley Avenue. The applicant held their neighborhood meeting on January 8th, 2024. The Land Development and Transportation Committee held their meeting on June 12th, as well as July 10th, 2025. The Planning Commission held the public hearing on August 7, 2025, where there was a motion to recommend approval of the change in zoning from R7 to C1, passing by a vote of 8-0. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Julia. This is in Councilwoman Chapel's district. So I'm sure she would like to share some of her thoughts with us. Councilwoman Chapel, you have the floor.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is another property in my district going to C1. This one is longtime restaurant Cottage Inn. The same owners who purchased Dairy Castle, which is another iconic spot over here in St. Joseph, purchased this building and rebranded the Cottage Inn to Parkway Diner. This has been something that they've been this rezoning has been something that they've been working towards for a while now. I'm very much in support of it. I think that the use has traditionally supported this zoning, so I think, in my opinion, this is more to clean up the zoning of this property. And so it has my full support, and I ask for everyone's full support on this. My only question for Julia would be if she could maybe speak to, this getting filed in January 2024 and us just now approving this in September 2025. Nearly 2 years.
Sure. So there was a lot of communication between the applicant and Public Works regarding access to the site. There's this, and having some pedestrian access as well. Currently, there's, I believe, just one existing curb cut along the entire property, and there was a lot of discussion about how to distinguish a pedestrian way and separate the on-street parking from on-site parking. And so that communication lasted quite a bit between the applicant and Public Works.
Thank you so much. But it's my only comment on this, but again, it has my full support and approval.
Thank you, Councilwoman Chapel. I see no one else in the queue. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns about this item? This item requires a roll call vote. Cheryl, will you open the roll, please?
Voting is open. Councilmember Chapel?
Yes.
Thank you. Voting is closing. Chair Owen, you have 7 yes votes.
Thank you. With 7 yes votes, this item will be moved to old business on the next Metro Council agenda. Item number 2 is O-209-25, an ordinance relating to the zoning of properties located at 3518, 3520, 3522, and 3524 Dutchman's Lane, and 2009-01 Cannons Lane, containing approximately .66 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 25, zone 0048. Can I get a motion? Properly moved and seconded. Julia.
This is 25 Zone 0048, Bowman Field Dentist Office. This is located along Dutchman's Lane and Cannons Lane in Council District 8. The existing use is residential, proposed use office. The existing zoning is R5 in the Neighborhood Form District, with proposed zoning as CN, Commercial Neighborhood, in the Neighborhood Form District. The change in zoning requested was R5 to CN, Commercial Neighborhood. There was also a couple waivers and a detailed district development plan with binding elements. As I mentioned, the proposed rezoning to CN would be to allow for a dentist office. There's roughly 3,500 square feet for that office, 1-story proposed. And then all the existing structures on the subject site are to be removed. This received approval from MSD and Public Works. Those homes were eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places as part of the Airview subdivision. A joint notice for the demolition and public hearing for the Planning Commission was sent at least 31 days prior to the public hearing. And then the Bowman area neighborhood plan applied to the site. This is the subject property, the existing homes. This is the applicant's development plan, showing the proposed building and parking, the elevations of the proposed building. The applicant held their neighborhood meeting on March 31st, 2025, with the Land Development and Transportation Committee holding the meeting on June 12th, 2025. The Planning Commission held the public hearing on July 31st, 2025, where there was a motion to recommend approval of the change in zoning from R5 to CN, passing by a vote of 9-0. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Julia. Wow, my colleagues are very quiet today. We usually have quite a, saving up. Good. We usually have quite a few comments. I don't have anybody in the queue. Oh, are you? Okay, Councilwoman Rui.
Okay, thank you. I've tried to read the report on this today, and is the standard binding element on this one yet?
Travis, are you able to speak to that?
Happy to. Travis Feaster, Assistant County Attorney. No, it is not present on this item.
Okay, can we go ahead and add that?
Give me just a second.
Just on behalf of Councilman Reno Weber, I can't imagine that he would have an issue with adding that standard binding element here.
Yes, I was noticing in the report some comments from neighbors that the person or the group owns other property and they are concerned about perhaps this becomes part of a larger development. So standard binding elements would help to protect them in case they do choose to do something else with the property.
All right, so this would become binding element number 7, and it would read as follows. Any significant increase to the proposed structures, e.g. increases in building height, number of units, number of buildings, any increase in density on the property, any change in use on the property which directly or indirectly requires a public hearing before the Planning Commission or subcommittee thereof, and/or any amendments to the binding elements other than I, the addition of new binding elements, 2I, changes to binding elements that merely update the public hearing date, or 3I, updating a previous version of this binding element to reflect the current language, shall be reviewed before the Planning Commission with final action to be determined by Metro Council.
So, would you go ahead and motion that, Betsy?
Okay, I move to add that standard binding element.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? The ayes have it. So we have an amended ordinance in front of us. Any other questions or concerns about this one before we open the roll? Cheryl, if you'll open the roll, please.
It's open. Councilman Betshon? Thank you. Chair Owen, you have 6 yes votes.
Thank you, Cheryl. With 6 yes votes, this will be forwarded unanimously to old business on the next council agenda. Next item of business is item number 3, O-169-25, an ordinance relating to the zoning of property located at 8,000 National Turnpike containing approximately .34 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 25, zone 0039. Can I get a motion? Probably moved and seconded. Let's see. We've heard this one from you, Julia. Can you give us just a quick thumbnail just to bring us kind of up to speed on where we are here?
Sure. So this one has been heard a couple times. There's existing use on the, commercial use on the site, proposed commercial use on the site, R4 to C2 Suburban Workplace Form District, R4 to C2, and then the proposals for auto sales and repair within an existing one-story structure with access from Tolls Lane. And this is the applicant's development plan. This one was recommended denial on the change in zoning from R4 to C2, passing by a vote of 4-2.
Okay. So it was my understanding that we were kind of we were holding this for a couple times. Were there some binding elements that were being added here, or maybe we'll turn it over to Councilman Syme. I think this is in his district, so he can speak to it.
I'm just here to encourage the commission, I'm sorry. I'm just here to uphold the Planning Commission's recommendation to deny the zoning change.
Very subtle, very subtle. Councilman Hudson.
Yeah, it was tabled. I was the one that tabled it. There was some confusion when we brought it to this committee last time, and I probably own most of that confusion. And I think Councilman Simon was absent that time, so I just wanted to provide the opportunity for that confusion to be cleared, and I think it has been, and I support Councilman Symes' position on this.
Okay. Anybody else have comments or questions about this one? I mean, I will just state that when I saw this one when it first came through, it seemed, to me, it seemed like an odd denial because of the way the property is surrounded. But I've made it pretty clear, I think, but I'll make it even more clear today, that my biggest push here at Planning and Zoning is to try to get housing projects approved because we're in such dire need of housing. And so on those types of projects, I think there need to be lots of questions and pushback and why are we doing or not doing this. And for me anyway, that's going to be my primary focus. In this case, I don't think the denial was the right choice. I'll probably be voting present as a result. But I do think that, if the councilman has made his statement here, and I think, Councilman Syme, would you like to speak?
Regarding that, we do want more residential areas, and we do want more single-family homes and affordable housing. But what this is doing is encroaching in our residential area. And the only way to get into this lot is from our residential street. It's not even from the main road. So that, I don't want to discourage any more growth in the residential area, and I don't want to encourage any more encroachment when it comes to noise and traffic and another car lot, and now a repair shop that's going to be dripping oil into the ground and right next to our residential area. So while we are thinking about the residential area and the private homes, let's think about the encroachment from these commercial areas that are impeding in these residential areas and hurting them. Also, the owner of this property is in violation right now. And I don't know who's to say he's not going to be in violation in the future, but right now he's in violation, and he's still going through issues with the violation. So I'm asking you to uphold the recommendation to deny this zoning change.
Thank you. It was my understanding, I thought, that the current owner was trying to get within compliance, and so my kind of viewpoint of it was that they had purchased the property. They probably should have asked more questions prior to purchasing the property as to whether it was in compliance. They were trying to do the right thing to get within compliance, so that was kind of my viewpoint on that. But, okay, so do we have any other comments or questions about this one before we open the roll? Pardon?
Betsy's on.
Why is there we are. Betsy, Kelsey? Okay. So without any further questions or concerns, Cheryl, will you open the roll?
Voting is open.
So let's make that clear. So Councilman Syme just asked if a yes vote is voting to uphold the denial. That's correct? And a no vote would be to overturn the denial of the Planning Commission.
Councilmember Syme?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Owen, voting is closing. You have 6 yes votes and 1 present.
Thank you. So this will be forwarded to old business on the next council agenda. Item 4 is being held. Item 5 is being held. Item 6, O-139-25, an ordinance amending sections 1.2, 2.2, 4.2, and 4.3 of the Louisville Metro Land Development Code regarding homeless and crisis shelters, case number 24-LDC-0001. Motion. Can I get a second? Properly amended and seconded. So this one has traveled a very odd path. It was passed out of committee and sent to Metro Council, and then requested to have it sent back, and we sent it back. Some changes were made. It passed out of, well, it passed out 3-2 to 1, I think, out of committee at our last meeting, was sent to Metro Council, and we came to an agreement again to have it sent back and have a little bit more discussion. So that's where we are on this. Councilwoman Rui, do you have, is that, are the amendments on the system, Travis, that we discussed this morning?
They are not.
They are not. Okay, so do you want to go over those amendments, and then we can kind of see where we are?
I'm happy to. Would you like me to address either one of them first? Would you like me to address either one of them first, or just go with both?
No, in either order.
Okay. So the first deals with the institutional use, conditional use permit. The committee will recall, just to kind of refresh you on this section, it was originally proposed to be struck by the Planning Commission. It came back in the last committee, there was an amendment to reinsert it. So 4.2.65 is sort of a live section. This amendment would do two things. Number one, it sort of renumbers things because we're going to create a new subsection, but it required a lot of strike-throughs and underlines to get that done. But it reorganizes the section a little bit, and then adds a section B. Now, there's a small clause in the initial. The current language reads, private institutional uses, except for such uses regulated elsewhere in this LDC, may be allowed in, and so on and so forth. Adds one parenthetical clause, as may be regulated elsewhere in the LDC, as may be further described below in subsection B. So subsection B is the new language. It deals specifically with these new shelter uses that the section creates. It would read as follows. B, this subsection expands on the specifics of uses regulated elsewhere in this LDC as needed. Sub 1, day shelters, accessory overnight shelters, and extreme weather shelters operating within an existing building on the development site of a non-conforming institution and more specifically regulated by the standards of Chapter 4, Part 3, shall not need a CUP in such circumstances. Such uses operated within an existing building on a development site of an institution holding a CUP shall also not require a new or revised CUP for such use. Big paragraph, let me explain what that means. Basically, these new shelter uses, if you have an existing, whether it's non-conforming or you have a CUP, if you have an existing legal private institutional use, whether that be a church or a community center or what have you, you could operate a day shelter, accessory overnight shelter, or extreme weather shelter within the confines of your existing building. New construction, you're going to need a new CUP, you're going to need a revised CUP, but if you are strictly allowing folks and complying with the other LDC terms inside of your existing buildings on these shelter bases, then that's fine. Again, that's arguably already sort of implied by the existing language here, where as more specifically regulated elsewhere. But wanted to be crystal clear that, the intent here, for example, with accessory overnight shelters are specifically for religious institutions. And so if there's an existing religious institution and they want to allow people as an accessory overnight basis into their existing building, they can do so without needing some additional procedural approvals as far as the CUP goes. So that's part one. It doesn't otherwise affect any other institutional uses. It doesn't affect the ability of anybody to get or amend an existing or new institutional CUP, just allows these new shelter uses for existing ones. The second one, and there were some comments about this at a council last week. The day shelters, section accessory overnight shelters, 4.3.33, subsection H, and extreme weather shelters in 4.3.34, subsection D, both currently have a clause that says you're going to need an LMCO license to operate this use. The problem is these are brand new uses that didn't exist before, and so there isn't a directly on point LMCO license in existence. It's tough to say exactly what would happen if we passed this current language. Maybe codes and regs would try to cram these in under the existing homeless shelter license, which is the closest thing, but it's not a one-to-one. Homeless shelters are, sort of larger dedicated facilities. A lot of these are more temporary in nature within another use. it would be difficult to impossible for most of these to get a homeless shelter license for one of these smaller shelter uses we're creating. So there's not an existing good license for these. And the need for a license isn't really strictly needed in the land development code. If codes and regs, or this body wants to go out and create a license specifically for day shelters, they can do so. Day shelters will still need to get that license. They just won't need the license for the zoning approval, but it can still be enforced through code enforcement. Think of it like an ABC license, you know. We don't require you to have an ABC license in order to get a C2 zoning for a restaurant. We deal with the zoning piece, and then you get the alcohol piece elsewhere. So the proposal would be to strike those two requirements, since again, these uses won't likely be able to obtain the existing licenses, and the existing licenses aren't made for these uses. So that language is a little bit problematic. It might make it so these can't really exist anywhere despite them being created by this ordinance. I know it's a lot of words for two relatively straightforward things. Again, to summarize, the goal is to eliminate the license requirement in the LDC. It could still be in the LMCO, but in the LDC, get rid of those two because the licenses don't currently exist. And to make it clear that these uses can be installed in existing institutional uses, assuming they aren't expanding their footprint within existing buildings. They could be temporary shelters and the like. I hope that's clear. I'm happy to explain, and I apologize for how messy these drafts has become, but that's what happens when we get multiple rounds of amendments.
Great, that's great. Thank you, Travis. So before we do anything with that, like I don't want anybody to offer an amendment on that yet. I want to discuss, you know, what Travis has brought up there. So, Councilman Reed.
Hit the wrong button. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank everybody for the hard work that's gone into this, the various iterations, you know, trying to assuage everyone's concerns and trying to thread the needle with regard to those concerns. And I think we're just about there. I did have a question for Travis. You mentioned religious institutions. Is there a definition in here of what are religious institutions? And I'll explain what I'm getting at here in a second.
So I believe there is a general definition of religious institutions somewhere in the land development code. It wasn't amended as part of this, so it's not on the draft. I can pull up the LDC and try and get that exact language.
While you're doing that, I want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilwoman Parrish Wright virtually.
If you like, we can come back to that as he's looking it up if you want to get somebody on.
Okay, Councilwoman Batchon.
Thank you. Trying to figure out where I want to start here. I acknowledge the back and forth and trying to thread the needle finally here, so we're covering all our bases. The licensing factor of this is got to be in some regards, right? I think it is very wise of us to remove the licensing piece out of the emergency day shelter, or emergency shelters. What I'm trying to find that section, so I have the actual wording. Extreme weather shelters. I think that's understandable. We have had record-breaking temperatures, whether it comes to wind chill or heat indexes and air quality concerns over the past few years. So we want to make sure that we have those means to allow areas of our communities to bring folks in with the provisions that we've had in this portion. When it comes to the accessory overnight shelters, as you said, Travis, that would require, that's for mainly, I guess you said, for religious institutions and so on and so forth. Again, I think it is extremely wise that if we are going to allow that to happen, and these institutions are thinking about allowing their locations to be an overnight shelter in some capacity, I think there shall be some type of CUP or license requirement in advance so that they already have it on file. So we don't end up in another situation like we did this past winter at a specific spot in Councilwoman Rui's district, right? A little different scenario, but I'm using that as the example. I think that the homeless shelters also should have those proper CUPs and licensing. I think it's okay to remove that licensing for the extreme weather shelters. I would like to see that in some facet, Travis, the question I think for you is, what does that LMCO license look like, considering we don't have it in place today? And/or this might be a question for Joel and Julia. Do we need to tie something in with codes and regs before we move this on that piece?
So there is an existing license for homeless shelters. Again, it's pretty expansive. I imagine most, if not any, accessory overnight shelters would be able to meet all of those conditions. If council wants to create a license for that specific use, they could. It can't be done as in the middle of sort of this ordinance. It'd need to be a separate item, since this is really just dealing with the land development code. But that could be created. If that is created, if we have a license that says, any accessory overnight shelter as defined in the LDC is going to need this license as well, then that language doesn't really need to be in the land development code. I mean, if we create a license for a use, you're going to have to get the license for the use. If you feel more comfortable leaving that in that language, you could, but if you leave that language in and we have a period where we don't have that license in place, you're either going to have some uses that cannot obtain the only existing license that's close, or you're going to have code and regs saying, well, that license doesn't exist, so we're just not going to enforce it. I don't know what situation we'd end up in for sure, and it might change as, individuals do.
Mr. Chair, can I cue back in?
You
Okay.
can.
With that being said, Travis, that brings me to another point. In this amendment, the newest amendment that we don't have in our system yet, but you sent out earlier in an email, we went from from what we had in the previous amendment, where it was 1 day shelter, 1 accessory overnight shelter, 1 extreme weather shelter allowed within 1,000 feet of each other to a community, to now 2. We haven't mentioned that. Is that correct?
So that was done a couple of amendments ago, actually. That was the first time we sent back down to committee, I think, was Councilwoman Rui's proposal. Originally, there was some language that talked about no more than 2 shelters within 1,000 feet. That was on the original version from Planning Commission, I think. But then we added in some clarifying language regarding the type of shelter, because there was sort of a general, you could have any of the 3 shelters, they didn't bar from each other. I think I'm remembering that correctly. But in any case, that was not in the most recent changes from the email earlier today. That was a previous version that this committee.
Okay, well, with that being said, I'm trying not to get into the weeds here, but if we're allowing to have 2 of each of these shelters within proximity of each other in any given zoning district that is allowed, I think there should be some integrity in the licensing factor of where we have to require some licensing, or they're just going to pop up in everywhere with no consequence, or not necessarily, I don't want to say consequence, no accountability.
Well, but we're really targeting religious institutions here for that carve-out, so they're not going to pop up everywhere. They're only going to be accommodated within an existing facility that is a religious institution. I mean, is that correct, Travis?
Yes, and it's a little hard to find that admittedly, because that requirement is located in the definition rather than the sort of subsequent regulations. But an accessory overnight shelter is defined as a facility that is subordinate to an active religious building, and so on. So it can only occur as an accessory to an active religious building in use.
If that's the case, then a acting religious institution that is saying they're doing this, but then they're doing this, can be found in the gray area, correct?
Well, so this is so I think that there's no reason why we can't have inspections or even a license for accessory units or accessory shelters and that sort of thing. And I think we could do that specific for that use. We just created that use on the books with this ordinance. And so I don't think there's a problem having some licensing requirement or inspection requirement. I think we should. I think it makes sense. But it's what, I think what Travis was saying is the only licensing that's currently available is for homeless shelters. And none of the uses we're talking about here, these new uses that have been created with this ordinance, would be able to get a license under the current licensing structure. So I absolutely think that we should immediately turn our attention to creating a licensing structure for what you're talking about. I don't think we need one for the temporaries or the emergencies, but for others, we might need to create a licensing structure immediately and make sure that we're creating it specific for that use rather than trying to shoehorn a license for a homeless shelter into these other uses that we've created.
With that being said, Chair, then we should leave subsection H in there and then immediately turn around and start creating the license for codes and regs.
I think we will have created we will have created a problem if we do that I think we're better off. And Joel, please step in and add your color onto this, please.
Chair Owen. So I just wanted to touch on inspections because inspections were mentioned. So if one of these facilities, whether it be an accessory overnight, and I have the religious building definition in front of me, which I'm happy to read, whether or not they require a license or not, they require building permits for a change of essentially the occupancy. You would be going from, say, like a gymnasium to an accessory overnight, or, you know, the parish hall, which is classified as one building code occupancy to another building code occupancy. And so while not necessarily requiring the licensing, which is another step beyond, these all would require essentially a change of use permit, and that change of use permit would require building inspections. The fire department would have a say in it, the health department would have a say in it, and planning review. So essentially the licensing requirement, it would just be an additional step on top of a step already, where much of the same information is collected. And we know through experience with other uses that the change of use permit process requires a lot of operators already. That is essentially functionally a license, where the fire department and the health department are already in the know and everybody knows that the facility is in existence. That's just to provide some clarity on inspections will be required, just not necessarily through the licensing process. And then I'm happy to read the religious building definition for Councilman Reed if he would like that read.
That'd be great.
So a religious building is defined as any building and the grounds of a building used by an association of persons for religious worship, and associated buildings and grounds used for instruction regarding the tradition and tenets of a religious faith, or for offices of persons engaged in the faith-based activities of the religion, or for social and recreational purposes, or child care centers, or as a meeting hall. Such buildings and grounds may not also be used for retail sales or other merchandising purposes, except that such buildings and grounds may be used for religious bazaars and suppers. No such building or portion of a building may be used primarily as a commercial theater, except that occasional plays or pageants for which a price of admission is charged may be held. Churches, synagogues, temples, and mosques are considered religious buildings for purposes of this land development code. So the accessory overnight shelter is very specific to just religious buildings.
Councilman Reed, now that we've had that read, we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Joe. So I think that's pretty specific. Here's what I'm getting at. What if an actor within a residential area operating as, let's say, a daycare center, calling themselves a religious institution when in fact they're not, and they don't have a conditional use permit as it is now? I know that exists in the community. There's one in my district. There are a couple of others throughout the community. Would that prevent them from having to seek a conditional use permit for what it is that we're trying to accomplish?
So essentially the question is, how do we determine whether or not they are in fact a religious building?
Yes.
I would defer to legal counsel on that.
Legal counsel?
So very generally, there's going to be sort of three categories, right? There are institutions private institutions that meet the CUP requirement, including religious buildings, that currently have a CUP. There are some of those in the community that have sort of come into compliance since we passed these rules circa 2017. There are non-conforming. There's a lot of non-conforming uses, ones that were in existence when these rules were passed in 2017, but they haven't made any significant changes. The new section at the end of the code that is meant to allow these new shelter uses covers those two examples. Those are sort of the legally compliant options. The third is someone who came into existence after the CUP requirement was created and never got one. So they are, as far as we're concerned, operating illegally. And they would not be entitled to then expand their use to a sort of shelter sub-use. They need to be legally compliant one way or another in order to then take advantage of the additional benefits of having these shelter uses by right. So they would need to come into compliance on the private institutional use front. Now, if they're operating illegally as a private institutional use, they might well then operate illegally as a shelter use. But as far as what the code would require, they would need to come into compliance to not create more enforcement issues for themselves.
Okay, but illegal is illegal, so if they're operating illegally now, they may operate illegally in the future, and it's up to us to put an end to that, basically.
Right.
Okay. I'm good. Thank you very much.
Councilwoman Rui.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate the robust discussion we're having here. So clarification for Councilman Batshon, the part that we changed about the within 1,000-foot rule originally said serving different populations. So it's like if you had a population of men, you could have a population of women, you could have a population of families. So that's why it got changed to be only 2 shelters of whatever description. That's how that got changed. I fully approve of the idea of a license, but right now, time is of the essence. It's going to start getting cold, and we need to ensure that folks have the opportunity to plan ahead and have a shelter that has met all the inspections, and they're ready to go when in January it hits 10 degrees and there's 4 inches of snow on the ground. So I would like to approve those amendments today and move this on and then come back and visit the license idea later. I think it's a fine idea, but right now we need to get these amendments approved.
All right, Councilman Batshon.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Travis. Thanks, Joel. Thanks, everybody, for that. But again, I come back to, rather than saying the shelter shall not operate without a license, why can we not change that wording to the shelter shall not operate without a CUP?
Would you like me to answer?
Sure, Joel.
I mean, I think the simple answer is that the resolution we received from council in February of 2024 very specifically directed us to create opportunities and options and bring forward shelter options permitted with special standards and to not pursue additional conditional use permits.
Sorry,
Mr. Chair, I had a comment.
I'm sorry. Councilwoman Parrish-Wright, did you have something?
Oh, yes, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I'm not in queue. Apologies, I'm late, but I just want to just back up the comment. The last statement that he just made. We were making adjustments to the land development code to make it easier for organizations and things to have a response. If things were to shut down today and that Ohio River flooded everybody right there, people will just get up and go where they go. People have always used churches and these places in emergencies for whatever reason. But this is an update to make it easier and legal for them to do that in a way that honors the human rights and the dignity of people who have to use those places. And I think that if we're going to do this, we got to consider this was to reiterate what we passed in 2024, and to make sure we seal it into our land development code. I think that licensures and CUPs and all of those things are already out there, already has language, already has all the things that need to be done. I just don't want us to lose sight of the main goal and to making this a process so that Louisvillians can respond and take care of Louisvillians. As Councilwoman Rui has just said, we've seen it. We've seen it up close and personal. And we want to make sure while it's our turn as council, that we're doing everything we can to assist. Now, I get it. There are bad actors in every field, and there's ways to deal with those bad actors, but we already have things in place to deal with those processes. I think this needs to be about making sure the land development code gives us what the community has been desiring. And I just want to reiterate that. I don't want to go back and forth. I've been listening, and I think all the reasoning makes sense. But this is a timely matter that we need to be able to take care of while we have the opportunity. Thank you.
Councilman Batchon.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make the amendment or make a motion for an amendment to put subsection H back into 4.3.33 and allow us the time to get the licensing squared away as moving this today with that back in there.
So we haven't motioned,
So you've got to motion that first before we can motion that? Because you don't even have this other one.
we don't have the other amendment motioned yet. So.
Right, I mean, we've just been discussing that language. We haven't even introduced it formally yet, I guess. Are you wanting to move everything that I had read with the exception of leaving the accessory overnight license requirement in place? Okay, I think that's a viable motion.
You're proposing to leave the accessory overnight shelter license in place?
Unscratch 4.3.33H. And Chair Owen, the new one that he sent an email earlier today
Oh, right.
is not in
Right,
this,
right.
in the system.
So we're basically leaving a requirement for a license that doesn't exist.
Or we can make it a CUP.
Then we haven't done what was originally, we originally asked the planning commission to
So then
do.
let's leave it as it says, it doesn't exist, and we work on what needs to happen to make it exist.
So the other thing we could do is just pass it as it is and then come back and create a specific license for the accessory overnight shelter.
But if we pass it the way I just mentioned, then it gives us accountability and teeth to come back and make sure that we get that done.
Okay, so let's make a motion to put the amendment that we have the email from in front of us. And then
Motion.
if you want, can I get a second? Okay, so properly moved and seconded. This is for the amendment that Travis read earlier. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so the ayes have it, and the amendment is passed. Now, do you have an additional amendment that you would like to propose?
The amendment I would like to propose would be to put section H in 4.3.33 back in. That's my,
Okay, so we have an amendment that's been properly seconded. We can have discussion on that now if we want. Let me see if do we have anybody in the queue to speak any more about that?
Mr. Chair, I would like to.
Yeah, Councilwoman Parrish, all right.
I think that this amendment that Councilman Basham is doing, it will make things harder for people that need to be able to respond to help Louisvillians. And if we pass this amendment, I want to have my name removed as a co-sponsor from this legislation, as the more amendments that Councilman Basham are adding removes the purpose of us doing this in the first place. And I think that's not a good precedent to go down, and I don't want to be a part of that. So I think that there's parts of this that aren't even ready yet. And either we table this and come back when we have a better thing, or we move from this, because this is not what we set out to do.
Okay, you have already been removed as a sponsor, just so you know. Okay, we do have, anybody else have, Councilwoman Rui?
Thank you very much. Knowing how long the process takes to get anything before our committee and before council, we're looking at a process that's like 6 months long. Winter will be over. I have no problem with going back to this later. I think it's an important thing that we should discuss. But right now, we need to get this in place so that we are able to make sure that any shelters that do choose to be created are safe, and they have been inspected, and they're ready to go. We can look at the licensure thing later, but right now we need to get this amendment, the previous amendments, established in ordinance.
Councilman Batchel.
Sorry, Chair, don't mean to keep going down the rabbit hole, but as County Attorney Travis Feaster alluded to, and Councilwoman Rui alluded to, that the license is very important, but time is of the essence. This still allows us to move as going, and then we can continue to work on the licensing, because it will not affect the current places in order now.
I hear what you're saying, but Joel kind of addressed this already, that we already have a process in place for what you're concerned about, for the accessory overnight shelter. I mean, did I hear you correctly, Joel, that you were saying,
Simply not having a license doesn't mean that they won't be inspected. They will require, for the most part, a change of use permit, because they are going from likely a gymnasium or a parish hall, which doesn't allow overnight occupancy. They will require a change of use permit, and I can't think of a circumstance, knowing what I know about that process, where going from something that doesn't allow overnight occupancy to something that allows overnight occupancy won't require a permit that requires building inspections, fire inspections, and health inspections. So it is essentially a license light already.
So that's what I had heard him say before, which made me entirely comfortable with the road we're headed down with the two amendments that we talked about this morning. The licensure piece, as it relates to the accessory overnight shelters, is an unneeded, unnecessary barrier that may catch, that I'm concerned may catch other things that we're trying to make easier and make it harder. That's my big objection here. I think we've already got something in place, so we're not going to have a flood of these things happen. I don't know what your exact concern is, but that we don't leave, a huge, hole in the legislation for a truck to drive through. I think, Joel just talked about that and assured us that we're not doing that. And so what I'm concerned is that we do what you're requesting and we end up creating another barrier that catches things that we're trying to make easier. So that's kind of where I am on this. Anybody else have questions or comments about Councilman Batchon's amendment? Because we do have that in front of us and we need to do a voice vote on that. Okay, so with that said, why don't we do it? Go ahead and do a roll call vote on Councilman Batchon's amendment, so we know exactly where we are on that.
Councilmember Parrish Wright?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Owen, you have 3 no votes and 4 yes votes.
Okay, so the amendment passes. So we have the amended version in front of us. I can say the amended version that's in front of us now, I will likely vote against at council. I think we have made a mistake, and I think we've not done what we were setting out to do from the beginning. So I don't have anybody else in the queue, so I guess we need to do a roll call vote on the amended ordinance. Cheryl, can you open the roll, please?
Vote is open. Committee Member Parrish Wright?
No.
Voting is closing. Chair, you have 4 yes votes, 2 no votes, and 1 present.
Okay, this will be forwarded to old business at the next council, on the next council agenda. Item number 7, O-177-25, an ordinance relating to the designation of the Chickasaw neighborhood as a local preservation district and the addition of Chickasaw to the list of local preservation districts in LMCO 32.252A, case number 24, landmark 0005. Do I have a motion? Properly moved and seconded. I am going to turn this over to Councilwoman Hawkins, who represents part of this district. I think she had something that she wanted to say.
Yes. First, I wanted to say it's important to listen to the community's needs. I've done my homework on this. I'm a little concerned on why I was overlooked as far as it's been tabled. It was tabled on August the 5th. It was also tabled again on August the 19th. I would not like to see this tabled again. I know respectfully it has been asked to be tabled again today. I want all my constituents in the audience here to understand that time is the only thing that you don't get back. So I don't want this to be tabled. My colleague, Andrew Owens, was asked to table this by Councilwoman Purvis. And I want to be very clear on the portion of Chickasaw. So after reading in the record, not only is it Chickasaw also is Winrose, which is my district, Comar Drive, which is my district, Lewis Coleman Jr., which is my district. 3 portions of my district is out of 5. I've already worked with Savannah Dar very closely, and at this time, I'm going to refer to her just asking 3 of these questions. If you wouldn't mind, the first question that I have for you is, could you tell the committee the pros and cons of this historic preservation? The second question is, how many letters or signatures have you received for or against this? And will this open up funding for property owners to improve their properties?
Ms. Dar?
Yes, absolutely. Savannah Dar, Office of Planning, Historic Preservation Officer. I worked with Councilwoman Hawkins to put together an FAQ for the neighbors, which really lays out a lot of answers to her questions about what is a local preservation district, which is really just a design review process put in place by the neighborhood, driven by the neighborhood, with guidelines written by the neighborhood. It is not anything that we at Metro are putting onto this neighborhood. It is something that we are responding to a request from them. I will say that it does put that design review in process, which some people see as a pro, some people can also see as a con, but it does preserve that neighborhood in the way that the neighborhood wants to see it preserved, and it's really on their shoulders to do that. I will also say that as far as funding opportunities, we at Metro did receive a grant to list this neighborhood on the National Register of Historic Places, which we did officially do, which opens up tax credits for this neighborhood to allow them to utilize that funding. There's a pool specifically for owner-owned and owner-occupied properties that they can use to rehab their buildings. And local designation as well as federal designation does lead to other grant opportunities and things like that that can help the neighborhood meet some goals that they have. And then as far as numbers of letters and signatures, this process started with a petition of 200 residents within the district. However, when we started moving forward to public hearing to the Landmarks Commission, which happened several months after receiving the petition, we received predominantly an overwhelming amount of letters of support out. I'm sorry, I don't have that exact number in front of me, but I can tell you right now on my desk, I have a folder that's about this thick where I have been copied on letters to Councilwoman Hawkins and Councilwoman Purvis, and it's literally this thick, and they're all letters of support. I have not personally spoken to anyone who has been not in support of this proposal. At the Landmarks Commission, we did have about 4 or 5 people that did speak in opposition. And some of those speakers were clearly in opposition, as is their right. And then some of them had actually said that they had learned a lot at the public meeting and weren't sure if they were still in opposition and looked forward to working with the neighborhood team on what those guidelines would be. Because right now, it's very hard to say what is going to be regulated in the preservation district because the neighborhood hasn't written those guidelines yet.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hawkins?
Just so this can either move on or it won't get dropped, the ball will not get dropped again, I'd asked if I could be a co-sponsor to this. Respectfully, my colleague Donna Purvis, I'm not quite sure what is her reasons, but I can fully say that I am in support of this. This is predominantly my district. I understand that she is supposed to be having a community meeting for this on Thursday. If I'm correct, she was supposed to have a community meeting last week. It got canceled. So now there's another community meeting. I know the chair wants to be respectful to my colleague, but I also want to be respectful of my constituents' time. I just, feel like that we should always think community first. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to, I have held this the last couple of weeks at the request of Councilwoman Purvis. In full transparency, I will be a yes vote on this when it comes both in front of committee and when it comes in front of council. So I'm entirely in support of this. I would, however, still request that we allow this to be tabled today at the request of Councilwoman Purvis. She does have a neighborhood meeting scheduled for this Thursday, and she said once she's had that meeting that she will be happy to let it come in front of the committee at our next meeting. So I would encourage us to do that at her request. Again, I'm for the legislation, both now and in front of council, but that would be my request.
Exactly.
Does anybody, I'll make that a motion. If anybody,
Oh, you want to make a motion to table?
I'm making a motion to table.
That's what I was making sure.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. So this will be a voice vote to table. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Let's do a roll call vote so we know who has voted in what way.
Councilmember Parrish Wright,
Yes.
Councilmember Bretcher,
Well, two things. I requested to speak, but I don't think you saw that, Chairman.
Hold on a second. I think we've got a roll open, so we need to.
Well, the second thing is my dots don't work,
That's important.
so I'm a no.
So you're a no?
voting's closing.
I don't get a vote. It's my district.
No. Chair, you have 4 yes votes, 2 no votes, and 1 present.
So it's been tabled. Okay, so that will come back up in front of committee meeting. All right. Next item on the agenda is item number 8, O-207-25, an ordinance relating to the detailed district development plan for property located at 6560 Patriots Crossing Trail containing approximately 9.86 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 25 DDP 0019. Can I get a motion? I guess probably moved and seconded. Julia?
Yes, this is 25 DDP 0019 for Willow Green Townhomes. This is located at 6560 Patriots Crossing Trail in Council District Number 2. The existing use is vacant. Proposed use is residential. The existing zoning is C1 in the Suburban Workplace Forum District. There was a request for a waiver and a detailed district development plan with binding elements. The site is approximately 9.86 acres. existing zoning, C1. It's near the intersection of South Hurstbourne Parkway and Patriots Crossing Trail. The residential development consists of 95 townhome units distributed across 18 two-story structures. Transportation and MSD have preliminarily approved the proposal. This site was rezoned from R4 to C1 under docket 15 zone 1021. There is a general plan binding element that requires that any multifamily use require approval of Planning Commission and Metro Council. This is the applicant's development plan, the elevations. The Planning Commission held their public meeting on July 31st, 2025, with a motion to recommend approval of the revised plan passing by a vote of 9-0. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Julia. Anybody have questions or concerns about this detailed development plan? Councilwoman Rooney.
Thank you very much. You can tell I did my homework today. So I was noticing in the concerns that were presented by the neighbors about connections in the traffic plan and all the development that's expected around there. So how has that been addressed in the plan?
So the plan does not show any connection to an adjacent property that's not associated with this multifamily. So the Willow Green Phase 1 kind of surrounds the site. I'll put up that. Surrounds the site to the south with an access point off of Patriots Crossing Trail. So all of that is owned by the same person or same entity as this proposed expansion. So there's no connection to adjacent properties as far as an adjacent property to the east or west, rather.
Okay, and just for my own edification, I'm looking at the maps and it talks about local 502 lots. Are those proposed schools or what?
Can you help me? Where is that indicated?
Okay, let me see, where am I on here? I need a page number, but I'm looking at a map and it's showing Mercy Academy, detailed development plan, Hull Street, and it shows a local 502 future development, and somewhere in there they were talking about future JCPS middle school and elementary school or something. I'm on page 5 apparently.
Of the staff report?
No, this is the developer's presentation.
Okay.
This is Laura Ferguson, Assistant County Attorney. There was on the plan at the time, there had been a proposal that came through for the union that had bought a portion of the site to use for training, and then they bought a catty corner portion of the site that's along closer to Mercy that they were going to use as a future development, probably for office space. But that proposal hasn't, on that second piece owned by the union, hasn't been brought forward yet.
Okay, is that okay.
And then Mercy bought a piece that's adjacent to Mercy as well. So there's two portions that are right along Mercy, one owned by Mercy and one owned by the union.
Okay,
I don't think either one has a formal development plan yet.
Oh, okay, it's Union Local 502.
Yes.
Thank you. That would make sense then. Okay, thank you. And has a standard binding element been added to this development plan then?
The general plan has a binding element that says multifamily has to be approved by Metro Council, the Planning Commission, Metro Council, but the development plan does not have the standard binding element.
So we have an older version of the standard binding element on the general plan.
Okay. So I want to ensure something is on there since I don't see anyone coming to speak on this. Whose district is this?
Councilwoman Shanklin.
Okay, thank you.
Would that, but aren't we doing what, in approving this detailed development plan, aren't we doing what the binding element on the general plan required us to do? So it seems to me like this is, that the standard binding element isn't really needed. We're at the process where we're doing what the binding element on the general plan asked us to do. Julia, am I missing something there?
I don't think so. I think that's correct. The general plan binding element indicated that if a proposal for multifamily was to be on the site, that it would go to Metro Council for approval.
Which is exactly what we're doing right now.
Which is what you're doing here, yes.
Councilman Hudson.
I was able to get the answer to the question I had, so I withdraw.
Anybody else have questions or concerns about this issue? Okay, this requires a roll call vote. Cheryl, can you open the roll, please?
Voting is open. Councilmember Parrish Wright?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair On, you have 7 yes votes.
Thank you, Cheryl. With 7 yes votes, this will be forwarded to old business unanimously at the on the agenda for the next
Mr.
council.
Chair, it can go to consent if you'd like as a development plan.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Let's send it to consent. Thank you. Okay, the final item in front of us is item number 9, O-208-25, an ordinance relating to the detailed district development plan for property located at 9309 Smyrna Parkway, containing approximately 8.96 acres, and being in Louisville Metro, case number 25 DDP 0057. Can I get a motion? Properly moved and seconded. Julia.
This is 25 DDP 0057 Smyrna Parkway Apartments, located in Council District 23 at 9309 Smyrna Parkway. The existing use is vacant, proposed residential. The existing zoning is R6 in the Neighborhood Form District. The proposals for a revised detailed district development plan with binding elements. The site is approximately 8.96 acres, zoned R6 in the Neighborhood Form. This was rezoned under 20 Zone 0121 for a 144-unit multifamily development. The applicant is proposing to construct a 1,600-square-foot clubhouse with pool, and this one had the standard binding element added to it regarding significant changes and increase in building. So this is the change to the site, which is adding a proposed clubhouse, what the subject property looks like today. And then the Planning Commission held their public hearing on July 31st, 2025, with a motion to recommend approval of a revised plan, passing by a vote of 9-0. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Julia. This is in Councilman Hudson's district. I think you would like to speak to it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This simply just improves the amenities of this complex, adding a clubhouse and a pool. The system's doing what the system was designed to do, brings it before the council if they make any major changes. So I support this and encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hudson. Got nobody else in the queue. Without any further questions or comments on this one, we'll open the roll. Cheryl.
Voting is open. Councilmember Parrish Wright?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair On, voting is closing. You have 7 yes votes.
Thank you. Is it okay if we send it to consent, Councilman Hudson? Okay. So with 7 yes votes, we'll send this to the consent calendar on the next Metro Council agenda. Without anything else on, does anybody else have anything that they'd like to deal with before we adjourn? Okay, thanks everyone. We are adjourned.